Test test. Okay, cool. All right, so welcome to the second episode of Laredoans Behind the Business. I'm your host, Jeffrey Ramos, and today I have Billy Hrncir and Rochelle Mota with Café Radical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Dosis Coffee. Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming on the show, and I really appreciate you being on the show and being a part of the show.
Excited to be here for sure.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say you guys have a beautiful place. And no, they're not paying me to say that. They have a really beautiful place. We're in one of their meeting rooms right now. You guys have a really good food, really good coffee. I had that sandwich with the cranberry, or what was it?
Yeah, that's our Thanksgiving, sort of Thanksgiving-inspired sandwich right now. It's a cranberry jelly made by La Gorra Azul Ranch. We try to get as much local products as we can. She's one of our vendors. Sliced green apple, turkey, provolone cheese on our house-made bread.
Nice. It was a really good sandwich, and I really enjoyed it. It sounded a little weird, especially with the cranberry at first. And I was like, I don't know that I'll really like that. But it tasted really good. Like, there was so much flavor to it. And, man, I really enjoyed it. And, again, they're not paying me to say that. So, so you guys started Dosis back in when?
Dosis was started in June of 2020.
So you guys have been running for about like 2 years now.
2 years.
And then Café Radical was just recently started, right?
About 5 months ago.
Wow.
So we did June of 2022 is when we started with Café Radical.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember hearing about Dosis when you guys first opened up, and like, you know, Laredo, they got, you know, they have to promote and say everything. You know, like the word of mouth goes around.
Sure.
And when I heard that, I was like, man, that's awesome. Like a local coffee shop. You know, I hadn't heard of any others, so like I was like, great, that's awesome. You know, another coffee scene, other than Starbucks. You know, it's awesome. How did you guys come up with the name?
Sure. So we were living in Puerto Rico at the time when we had started kind of thinking about the idea of, or I guess brainstorming the coffee shop idea, knowing that we were going to come back to Laredo and do something. And at the time I was working as a freelance graphic designer and a barista, and with my graphic design work I would do a lot of projects for this guy named Etienne, who is pretty big in the coffee world there in Puerto Rico, at least in the San Juan area. His ex-wife Rebecca Atienza has a bunch of shops called Hacienda San Pedro, and they have, I think they're up to like 8 shops now, something crazy. But he would do these little like side projects, and one of those was he was pitching the idea to Urban Outfitters inside of a mall there to do like a standalone coffee shop inside of Urban Outfitters.
Yep.
And he wanted it to be called Dosis, and he was like, this is a great name. It's like, it works, it's English, it's Spanish, it's everything. And so I started doing some random logos for it, and the project just never happened.
You kind of took ownership of it.
Well, yes and no, because it like never even, the presentation never even happened. So It was just like, it never happened. And when Rochelle and I were sitting down thinking about names, we kept coming back to Dosis, and we were like, Dosis is really cool.
Yeah.
And for the same reason it works in Puerto Rico, which is the bilingualism of it.
Right.
It works in Laredo for the same reasons. So
right.
I messaged Etienne and I was like, look, man, can we have the name? Like no money was exchanged, so it wasn't even like
you paid for the name or anything like.
No, and he never paid me to do any of the brainstorming that we had done for the initial logo. So
it was all like mutual.
Yeah, and so he basically said, take it, run with it, good luck.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that kind of secured the initial name, and then we kind of just went on.
Now, is there a reason why you guys didn't do Dosis like number 2, and like why you went Café Radical, or?
Yeah, I think with Café Radical, we wanted to just do a different concept overall, because we were going to be bringing in food and we were going to be bringing in wine, which up to now hasn't happened, but that is the goal.
Right.
And so we just didn't want it to be another Dosis. We wanted it to kind of have its own persona and its own branding and everything. And again, because Billy has a graphic design background,
Mm-hmm.
he gets really excited to design new things. And
Yeah,
so
definitely. Yeah.
that's why we decided to go with a completely different concept.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And I had heard that you guys had a cease and desist. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that or.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was never actually like any official legal documentation, I guess, filed. So we're not like, it's not like we can't talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't know
No,
if
no,
you guys
no.
were comfortable about.
It sounds cooler when you say that. That we're like, legally not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah. Right.
But no, basically,
It's top secret. It's confidential.
we had when we started with the name, it was going to be Rad Coffee and Wine.
Okay.
And we had come up with the idea because I say rad a lot, and Rochelle pitched it and was just like, this would be really funny if we called it this, and it makes a lot of sense. It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's a relevant term to, like, it's kind of come full circle. Like, it was big in the 80s, and it's sort of making the rounds, or at least I say it a lot. And so we said Rad Coffee and Wine. We did kind of a simple Google search, and this shop popped up in California called Rad
really?
Coffee. Not and wine, and obviously
It was just Rad Coffee.
Rad Coffee,
Rad
and it was
Coffee.
in California. They had a few shops. They were relatively big, but we just assumed, we're not planning on taking this nationwide. It's a local coffee shop in downtown Laredo, water under the bridge kind of thing.
Yeah.
But because, I like to cross my T's and dot my I's,
Yeah, that's a good thing.
I messaged them, or I sent them an email,
Yeah.
basically saying, look, my wife Rochelle and I, this will be our second coffee shop. We want this name for this reason, obviously, because then we came to find out they had like 6 different trademarks.
Oh, really?
Surrounding
Damn.
the name, like in all different types of usage, and so it was it wasn't necessarily the name Rad, and then the word coffee was the association of the two together, I guess.
Yeah.
And basically they didn't say anything for about a month, 2 months, I don't know, about 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just kind of were like, okay, I guess they don't care. Let's just, keep on with
Just
the name.
run with it. Yeah.
And then they finally got back to us, and they were like, yeah, like, unfortunately you can't use that name. Rad combined with coffee,
Yeah.
even if it adds the and wine, or if you change it around somehow, if the word rad and the word coffee are in there, you're going to get a cease and desist.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we talked to our lawyer, who basically just told us, like, you don't...
Just don't run with it.
Yeah, like, there's a chance you could end up winning, but it's going to cost you more than you're wanting to pay, which I think
Yeah,
is
and I think it's good that you went the route of messaging them and asking them instead of like just running with it, because that could have cost you guys like a lot down the road.
Oh, for sure. At the time, we had only bought a couple stickers, so
Yeah.
it was, I think we lost like $300.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Compared to had we put a huge sign out front, or, all of our marketing materials and all of our packaging.
Yeah.
So it, lesson learned.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, it was kind of a good exercise to have gone through, because it allowed us to a second shot at the naming and everything. And same with Dosis, like the word radical is one of those that you can say in English or Spanish.
Radical,
and
yeah.
it's spelled the same way, and we like the homage to the Latino culture of Laredo.
Yeah.
And it made sense for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Being from Latino backgrounds.
That's badass. Yeah, so I had heard like a rumor that you guys got the cease and desist from like somebody here in town, or like from like here locally. And when I heard that, I was like, man, that sucks. Like, typical Laredo. But I'm glad that you guys are kind of like, saying like, no, like it was from a different company or whatever the case may be, because, I feel like there's a lot of negativity here in this town, and we just kind of got to like push it around and go in the positive direction. And
yeah, there was a lot of talk about the city of Laredo too, kind of manhandling us there in the beginning, and we haven't really had a chance to say it, I guess, as publicly.
Yeah.
But we weren't, they were just following what the ordinances say, and we ended up having to kind of jump through some hoops here and there to get this place open downtown. But I think at the end of the day, they want things for downtown too. Their hands are kind of tied in a lot of the
The ordinances
scenarios.
are really like what became an issue because of we're not considered central business district. We're considered historic office, and
Because of the location, right?
because of the location.
Yeah.
And so that's where a lot of problems were coming up. But on the plus side, that led to them talking about changing that parking ordinance. So I believe at this point that ordinance has changed, and now anyone in the historic district doesn't have to have, certain parking requirements.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, at least we had to kind of go through that headache and go to all these meetings and things. But at the end of the day, they were able to change that ordinance. At least I think so.
Yeah.
If it hasn't changed already, at least it's in the works.
Well, that's good. That's good. And so you just mentioned that you're going to a lot of meetings and stuff, and I'm gonna kind of like go into the next question here. But as a business owner, like I think that's a lot of stress on you guys, and especially you as an optometrist. You're an optometrist, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like that's a big stress level load. Like you're having to go to these meetings, you're having to keep up with city ordinances, you're having to keep up with like certain regulations and stuff, but also running your business, making sure that your employees are okay, your customers are treated well. Like, how do you guys handle that? Like, I mean, there's not a secret.
Well, no.
I mean, there's not a secret to it, but like, I mean, how do you guys handle that?
Yeah, I think that we're lucky that we work as a team, and there's things that I'm better at and things that Billy's better at than me, and so we kind of tackle those things together. And so he's really good at talking to people and like going to the offices and being everyone's friend.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's really helpful. And so we really just have to make time, and it's tough sometimes because if you're working a full-time job and you're trying to open a business, I mean, there is a lot of stuff that's done Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, which is when a lot of people are working.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's the difficult part, having to ask for time off or request certain meetings at certain times. And on the plus side, if you've never been to like the city hall, the board, they always host these meetings, and you can basically go as a citizen and say, hey, these are some of the things I'd like to see change in Laredo. And you can just go up there for 3 minutes and say, I wish there were more bikes downtown that I could ride, or I wish that,
Really, I didn't even know that you could do that.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people don't know that, and I do encourage, everyone to go.
Week, right? Twice a month.
Yeah,
Wow.
every other week you can just go. You just put your name down on a card, and they'll give you your 3 minutes. You can literally talk about whatever you want,
Wow.
and just kind of let them know this is the change that we want for Laredo. And I feel like if enough people knew about it, and if enough people went and did that,
Yeah.
they would start to change these things a little bit quicker.
Absolutely, I think so too. I mean, I know that there's a lot of stuff around the city that I look at and it's like, why hasn't that been changed? Like, this is
Yeah.
the same stuff that they've had for like 40, 50 years, and it's like, when are they going to change it? But like you said, if nobody goes up there and says anything, I didn't know that you could do that. So
Well, and I mean, it's as simple as she's saying, but it's even easier. I mean, it literally doesn't. You don't have to know the ordinance you're referring to. You don't have to have any sort of. You can literally just say like, "Hey, I wish Laredo painted the sidewalks yellow." And again, there's no guarantee of action, but it at least gets the word out there, and it shows that the community is involved, as opposed to, I think right now too, you could ask some of the city council people and they'll tell you, people don't bring
enough topics to the table.
Yeah, and everyone wants to talk about the same things all the time without really knowing, like, oh yeah, clean water. Yes, we all want clean water. That's
Right.
obvious. And
Yeah.
the city's trying to do that, but that's not something that's like, just because you go and you talk about it every time. It's one of those things like.
Like, it's not going to happen overnight.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
and the topics can be more diversified. It doesn't need to be, just the heavy hitters.
Right.
I mean, there's so many things that the city could use in terms of future progress, and by going to these meetings and making your voice heard, you're able to kind of spread that knowledge. And maybe it's, oh, you wish Laredo had more non-chain restaurants. Well, there's some people with deep pockets on that city council,
Yeah.
or that go to these meetings that may be willing to invest in a concept like that.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
And just by sharing that idea in a setting that's not just, oh, let me post a story on Instagram or something, it goes a long way.
Yeah, I would say it does. I mean, I, I thank you for bringing that up to discussion because I had no idea, and I know me and my wife always look at each other and we're like, we go down the street or we're rolling, we're driving down the street and it's like, man, something needs to change around here. Like, there's so many things that can be changed,
Right.
and it starts with us really because
Exactly.
we're the ones that live here and the city council members and all the people that are on the board, like, they're there for us.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's one of those unknown stressors. As a business owner, I think you don't really think about those until they directly affect you. At least I mean, I know that's how it was for us, right? I mean, we found out about this because it affected our business directly.
yeah.
And I think if you want to talk about like stress on a business owner, it's not necessarily essential as a business owner to go to these meetings and do these things, but it definitely makes your life a heck of a lot easier if those things are working in your favor. And the only way to make that happen is to actually go talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. To kind of change the topic here a little bit, your family, your dad has always been a business owner, and do you have any family members that are business owners, or you kind of just ran along with Billy and
Yeah, so my grandparents have owned a bakery since the 70s, I believe. So they
Here in
opened
Laredo?
Retama Bakery,
Oh, wow.
and then that became Cake Land, which then added bolillos into the mix as
Oh,
well.
that's so awesome! I didn't know
And
that.
then my grandfather also started JMG Construction. So
Oh, that's awesome.
there is business,
Business
a lot
roots.
of business roots, exactly,
Yeah, I
on
think
both sides.
Both sides, there's a pretty heavy entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
That and on my side, I have a ton of teachers, but I wasn't going to be a teacher.
Yeah, but I mean, your dad's a business owner too.
Yeah,
so
and he's a lot like Rochelle in that he gets bored easily. So the ideas
Something-
are always flowing, which is very cool to be around.
Yeah.
And I tell people this a lot because I kind of, I don't know, in my head, I always felt like I was kind of more the idea person. And then I met Rochelle, and I mean, she's impossible to keep up with.
yeah.
I mean, she's talking about plans 15 years down the line, and I'm just like, okay.
Living in the moment.
Yeah, like I woke up today, I made sure we had bananas for the shop. Like, it's I'm much more day to day.
Yeah.
In terms of my responsibility with the company, as opposed to, I think Rochelle is the one. Obviously, well, she handles all the numbers, but on top of that, she handles like, future projects and things like that. Not that I don't add to it, but at the same time, she handles the brunt of all of that. And, I do all the graphic designing and making the ideas come to life sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And Rochelle, did you always want to be an optometrist? Like, did you always have a passion for that, or?
Yeah, so I always knew I wanted to go into medicine somehow, but again, having business in my family background, I also wanted to be a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I chose optometry because it is a combination of medicine and being a business owner if you own your own practice.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is why I decided, to go down the path of optometry.
That's awesome. I was telling Billy the other day when we went on a run that it's cool to see that you're an optometrist, and I have a lot of not a lot of experience, but a lot of medical history with optometry, because I was telling him that I have a history of keratoconus.
Oh, okay.
So I got diagnosed with that while I was in the Army. Luckily, they didn't kick me out, and I wasn't even supposed to be in the Army.
Yeah.
But luckily they didn't kick me out, and I ended up getting the surgery. And I was telling Billy, if you do any of that specialized field of
Right.
medicine with the eyes, especially in keratoconus, because there's not a lot of doctors here that specialize, so I have to go out of town and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, and I mean, the bad thing about Laredo is it's a very underserved community in terms of medicine as well. And so there are I believe two practicing ophthalmologists who still do cataract surgeries.
Wow.
But we don't have any specialists besides that. There's retina groups that come into Laredo, but there's no cornea specialist, there's no glaucoma specialist necessarily. And so it is unfortunate, and a lot of people have to travel out of town to get good care.
Yeah.
Luckily, the optometrists and the ophthalmologists are kind of like that first step. So, you're still getting good care, but there's only so much we can do because of, what our practice allows or what state laws allow as well.
Oh, really? And what is that? Well, like the state laws, what does that entail?
Yeah, so for example, optometrists are usually trained to even perform laser procedures, and in Texas, we're not allowed to use those laser procedures.
Oh, wow.
Because of Texas laws. There's just a couple things going on between the ophthalmologists and optometrists that they just, don't agree with the education, certain levels that are needed of practice and things like that.
Wow, that's interesting.
But if you go to Oklahoma, for example, you can get, incisions, you can get injections,
Wow.
lasers, and
In
all
your
kinds
eyes?
of things. Yeah, because
Wow, that's
optometrists
Oklahoma's the Wild West.
yeah,
Exactly.
they still are. Right?
Yeah, since optometrists are trained in school to do that, again, we're, able to, just that state laws prohibit certain states can't and certain states can. So,
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah,
That's
it's
interesting.
very tricky.
I don't know that I'd want like an incision in my eye. Like I didn't even want the surgery that I got. Like that's that I stayed awake for the whole thing.
Right.
That was like the most nerve-wracking thing I'd ever done.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. And then
No, and this is usually like eyelid procedures. So like simple things, like if you have, a little growth that's non-cancerous, in a lot of states they can just,
Take it
that off.
Yeah.
But in Texas, we're not allowed to do that. So
Wow. So you have to go out of state to go do that.
well, you have to go to an ophthalmologist at that point.
Oh, okay. So optometry and ophthalmology are totally different.
Yes, so optometrists go to optometry school, and we can manage and care for certain ocular diseases. And then ophthalmologists are going to be surgeons, so they usually do cataract surgery at least.
Oh, okay.
If you specialize in, that's when you get like cornea surgery, like you did, or you can get glaucoma surgery, or go more advanced into like.
So they're like the surgeons,
yes,
basically.
exactly. They're the
Okay.
surgeons.
That makes
That's
sense.
like the easiest way to distinguish is optometrist treats and diagnoses.
Right.
Or diagnoses and treats. Ophthalmologist does surgery. That's
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. That's cool. And Billy, did you know that? Did you always have a passion for like business, or was there something else that you wanted to do when you grew up that you
Honestly,
thought and you're like, man, I didn't picture myself here at like at 30 or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
no, I went to the Magnet High School at Alexander. I
Yeah.
thought I was going to be a doctor. I took one science class in college and knew that that was not for me.
Because of math, or
it just wasn't clicking.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't click. Like I mentioned before, Rochelle handles the numbers because outside of just like very basic stuff, it just does not work for
Yeah.
me. I guess I'm like more artsy side of things, which I never really knew how far my eye for design or
like your creative side could go.
yeah, and it ended up being kind of the thing that was at the forefront of everything that I was doing, and I didn't really notice at the time, but that's all the jobs I had.
Yeah.
I always liked that little chunk of creativity that I was allowed to.
Give an example of that.
So, like in college, I worked for the football team at the University of Texas, and
That's awesome.
for me, it was all about the gear. So like
Okay.
the Nike reps would come down and they'd give us these presentations, and they'd have these forecasting books that showed us what we were going to be getting in 3 years before it hits stores. And when we get it in 3 years, well, the public probably gets it in 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
So we're like at the cutting edge of everything. I got to see shoes, gear, clothes, everything that was Nike was doing that was coming out, years before
Before
it ever
the
hit
public
the
saw
shelves.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And man, I nerded out on that. I've always been like a sneaker person, and that was like a whole other level. So I wanted to do that for a while, and I used my time with the football team to try and reach out to as many people from Nike in terms of design and product development. And there's this a really cool position at Nike that you're kind of the middle person between the engineers, the designers, and the athletes themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the engineer creates the shoe, right?
Right.
The designer then takes that core thing, makes it
Better.
look cool,
Yeah.
and works with functionality like final, well, mostly aesthetics. The engineer handles functionality.
Okay.
And then the athlete gets that prototype. This person takes it, watches practices, watches games as they wear these prototypes, gets feedback, takes the notes, has basically really casual conversations like the one we're having now.
Yeah.
But with high-profile athletes.
Wow.
Takes that back to the engineer, says, oh, well, you know, the athlete said it was rubbing right here on his foot. When he jumped, this snapped, this didn't work, this did this, the Velcro doesn't stick, the laces are too short. Anything from as simple as laces are too short to, man, the tech on these cleats, it's not digging in right. I don't feel like I have any traction. So then that goes back to the engineer fixes it. The designer looks at it again and he's like, well, now that you put that strap there, it threw off my whole design.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but it needs this strap for stability, so it's gonna go there, and you have to make it work. And then so it's this.
That's crazy because
and there's a person in the middle of all that, and that was like, I'm doing that. That's what I'm.
You're that person.
That's what I wanted to do.
Oh, okay.
And it just never happened. I applied to like 5 jobs at Nike that I was super underqualified for, and then I moved to Puerto Rico.
Yeah. But I mean, things happen for a reason, right? I mean,
no,
you got
for sure. Puerto Rico
I mean, you got
was
the
amazing,
experience out of it.
And it taught me everything I know about coffee. I mean,
Yeah.
I learned from a bunch of really, really impressive coffee people, both, you know, owners of shops, roasters, baristas, passionate coffee snobs, everybody in between. You know, and it's a very unique situation to be in where you're in the place that like the coffee you're drinking was grown like 40 miles away.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Like, that's not
The passion that goes into creating coffee is like on another level. Like I think it's so amazing, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's that, like, most people who wake up and have their cup of coffee have no idea that it started as a plant. They
Right,
have no
yeah.
idea that it doesn't look brown when it's growing. Like,
Yeah, it's green,
there's
right?
like 9 things that have happened prior to you receiving that cup of coffee.
Yeah, definitely.
Many of which are super labor intensive and just wild. But yeah.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question. Like, how do you guys choose coffee beans, and like, do you go somewhere locally, or do you go online? Like, how do you guys go about that?
So we use Café imports. They're out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. They're probably the largest in North America in terms of cafe importers or coffee importers. And they handle pretty much everything prior to the roasting for us. So they ensure that, you know, we're getting quality stuff. It's already been through a process called green grading.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they make sure that you're not going to be roasting beans that are, you know, molded, rotten, bad, and that they're all at that specific quality grade that we're looking for. We pay a premium for that. So if we were to have a direct relationship with a farm and source just ourselves with, you know, happen to have met a farmer or something, you want coffee, can we buy it from you? Well, we would have to then grade the green coffee ourselves, separate the good from the bad, do all that stuff.
And that's a different level of stress.
And it's just a skill set that is years of training. I mean, that's not something you just like, if I showed you 2 coffee beans right now that are unroasted and told you one of those is bad, you probably wouldn't be able to tell me why. Or if I didn't tell you one of them was bad, you'd probably think they're the same.
They're the same, yeah.
And that's the advantage of having someone like Café Imports kind of handle that for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's nice. It's almost like a catalog, and you get to choose, like, if you like coffee from Guatemala, they'll kind of show you these are all the offerings from Guatemala, and then they're scored a certain way, so you can say, like, I only want coffee with like this point system or however, and then it kind of tells you a little bit of what you should be tasting in terms of tasting notes, and it kind of helps guide you, but you still have to like order it green, roast it, and then taste it yourself.
Yeah, they'll basically tell you, like, if you roast it the way we did, this is what it should taste like. So you have like, you know, that baseline of, okay, our coffee from Chiapas right now is supposed to have like milk chocolate, kind of a peanutty aftertaste, that sort of a bit of citrus to it in terms of acidity. And if you look at the opposite of that, you'd have like an Ethiopian natural processed coffee, right? And that's going to have super herbaceous flavor, really, really fruity, juicy notes.
Yeah.
And to someone who doesn't know what they're drinking,
Right.
you give that to them in a latte, and they're going to say, oh, this milk is sour.
Right,
There's
yeah,
something off about what I'm tasting.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you
You
explain
guys
it,
have brewed that one here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so-
I think I've
We've
tasted it.
encountered problems like that before where, we'll try like a super funky coffee that we're like really excited about.
Yeah.
And, we usually drink it black. And so you really get to appreciate those flavors. But
Right.
then we'll have, customers tell us like, my coffee was really bad today, or like something was off, it just tasted weird.
Yeah.
And then we'll find out like, oh, it's because it was that one. Like it's, better if you just drink it without milk, or, adding all these like syrups and stuff to it.
Yeah.
And so that's where we've had to kind of learn like, okay, this is kind of what, Laredo likes, and this is, the kind of coffees we stick to. And then we'll kind of throw in another random one in there that we really like and think is fun, because there are coffee drinkers out there who want something like that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I like coffee, and I like drinking coffee, and I like brewing coffee at home. And I'm not a guy that has like that palate, but I do enjoy a good cup of coffee. And I think having various different types of coffees is good for people. And especially if they don't know, like you said, if they don't really know what they're tasting.
well, and that's kind of been, the part of the learning process for us too. Is one, a lot of the time the customer does want to be educated. They like not in a way that makes them feel stupid, right? But enough to say when they show up and you say, well, actually today on espresso we have coffee from Honduras, and you're gonna be looking for this, that, and the other in terms of tasting notes, and so it gives them something to shoot for, or to, like you said, maybe you say you don't have that great of a palate, but if I told you what'd you taste in today's coffee, and you said, chocolatey with a nutty finish, well,
There you
nailed
go.
it.
Yeah.
We're serving Chiapas on espresso today, and that's
Yeah.
what you should have tasted. So,
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be as exotic as it sounds. It's
Right,
It's like wine tasting or beer or anything,
Or even just food,
Yeah, or
like
even
kind
just
of
food.
knowing like, oh, this tomato tastes one way without anything, tastes different if you add salt, and it tastes different if you add olive oil and salt, and that's kind of how you start to train your palate, by knowing like, oh, there's salt on this one, okay, I see the difference now. And then, and it's the same thing with coffee. Like if this one's gonna taste a little bit blueberry-ish, then maybe you start to look for that, and you're like, I can appreciate now
Like
what
you
that
can
means.
see it,
It's
yeah.
not like it tastes like a blueberry, it just has that kind of like same, idea of a blueberry in a
Right.
sense.
And do you guys think you have the palate for coffee? Because, I mean, when it comes to coffee and like when it comes to cigars and like beer and stuff like that, I feel like I don't have the full spectrum of the palate. You know what I mean? But I can taste the generic ones. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
like,
I would say I could definitely give you like good from bad.
Yeah.
Very easily. To get all the nuances, I would say, we've been in the industry for a while now. I feel pretty confident about our ability to tell you what we're tasting in a coffee. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of it boils down to just not being afraid to actually say what you're tasting. We get a lot of like new employees that'll come in and they just like want to be quiet about, oh wow, you tasted like gingerbread? Like that's crazy.
yeah,
How did you come up with that? And it's like, well, I've tasted gingerbread and I've tasted this coffee.
right.
It reminds me of gingerbread. I mean, I've said that stuff has tasted like Fruity Pebbles before. It's you don't have to go off of the lexicon that the coffee industry has per se.
Right.
For it to be real. It's, what are you tasting? How do you
And
like
I think
to drink
similar
your coffee?
to food as well, it's like, what does it remind you of, based on your life and your experience? Like, oh, I grew up drinking this champurrado or whatever, and it reminds me of that. Or
Yeah.
So everyone's palate's going to be different. Everyone's way to describe what they're tasting is going to be different. Like even Billy and I mean, we describe what we taste very, very differently when we're cupping new coffees,
Yeah.
and so every person's gonna have their own style.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And is there a certain way that you guys like making your coffee? Like, do you prefer the espresso over the drip, or the pour over, or?
Yeah, I mean, I for sure, my go-to every day is a 6-ounce short Americano.
And what's the Americano?
An Americano is going to be 2 ounces of espresso, and in my case, I drink a 6-ounce, 4 ounces of hot water.
Okay.
Um,
No sugar, no nothing?
No sugar, no nothing. That's
Okay.
kind of my go-to. I usually try to taste the espresso by itself as well.
Mhm.
That's an important.
What does
part
what
of
does
my
the
day.
water do to the coffee? And like,
It kind of extends the life. Not kind of. It definitely does that. It opens it up a little bit. It allows for a longer drinking time as opposed to straight espresso.
does it bring out more flavors?
I would say it spaces them out. It doesn't necessarily add to it too much.
Okay.
But it also doesn't do a crazy job of taking away. So it's
Okay.
not like when you add milk or something that is going to really affect the flavor.
Right.
And the flavors need to be really strong to get through that milk.
Right.
As opposed to an Americano, you're going to get a little bit more of a true representation of what that coffee would be on its own.
Yeah.
Because that's a big thing too. Is espresso has to be dialed in every
Mhm.
day, and everything affects the flavor of that coffee. Namely the extraction time, right? And the extraction time changes
Depending on the coffee that you're brewing.
drastically depending on the coffee, depending on the weather, depending on ambient pressure, depending on.
It's crazy how many little things go into making espresso.
It's one of those things that you do not know these things,
Right.
if you've never experienced what a really good coffee is.
Right.
And for the longest time, coffee was this thing of just close your eyes and
Just drink it.
just drink it
Yeah.
because it's gonna give you the energy you need or whatever.
Right.
And so put tons of cream, tons of sugar, and it's gonna be bearable,
Yeah.
And I think the industry for many years now has kind of turned a new leaf, and I think Laredo's finally jumping on that same board of wow, if my coffee is actually good,
Yeah.
I don't have to put 5 sugars. I only
Yeah.
put 2.
Right.
I don't have to have half cream, half coffee.
My wife has been on that she's been on that trend recently where she's added tons of creamer, tons of sugar, and then there's days where I make another blend or whatever, and she's like, wow, I didn't need to put that much sugar this time. Am I changing? Is my palate changing? No, it's just the coffee. It's just the way that they.
When especially if you stay away from the really dark roasts.
Yeah.
Man, you can even my mom she used to drink this international coffee house. It comes in a can at HEB.
Yeah.
And it has dehydrated milk and sugar and everything already in it, and you
Right.
just put it in the hot water, and it is super sugary. I mean, it's like candy.
Yeah.
And now she's
Drifted away from that?
Yeah, and she gets half the amount of vanilla syrup that we usually put in our drinks, and she uses half as much milk as she used to use.
Appreciating more of the coffee. Yeah.
And finding those nuances of what the coffee can actually taste like.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up because. So ever since I joined the TikTok fad, because my wife was like, oh, get TikTok, right? And I was like, oh, fine, whatever. So I ended up finding this TikToker on TikTok, obviously, right? And his name is Soft Porn. It's Pourn, and he's a barista, and he has his own coffee, beans and all that kind of stuff. And he basically says the industry is so it's so negative where oh, you have to have the best Starbucks, or you have to have the best beans, and you have to have the best machines to roast the best coffee, and he's just no, you just have to know a little bit about coffee and enjoy it the way that you want to enjoy it, because it's coffee at the end of the day, and if it's something that you like, then it might not be something else that somebody else likes. It's the same way with beer or whiskey or food in general.
Yeah,
you know?
We're big advocates for that because people will say oh, you drink your coffee with 7 Splendas and whatever, and it's that's how they like their coffee.
Yeah,
just leave them alone.
And I know I'm sometimes like that too, because my wife is putting tons of sugar, sweetened lows, and it's dude, where's the coffee, but if that's the way she likes it, I guess, because I'm different. I just put a little bit of sugar and then that's it,
Yeah, and I think that coffee is this ritual, it's every morning you get your cup of coffee and you just sit there in peace, or maybe not, and
Yeah.
but it gives you that sanity that you need to get through the day, or however, some people only drink it in the afternoon, and
Yeah.
it's just part of like, I'm gonna sit here and enjoy this beverage, and people enjoy it the way they want to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I know coffee is like a big thing in Puerto Rico. Was it like involved in your meals, like let's say dinner?
Yeah,
Because I
so
know in Italy, like they'll have coffee before dessert, like after their main dish, and then
right.
they'll have it before their dessert or like with their dessert. Like, was that like a big?
Yeah, I think in Puerto Rico, we've always loved coffee, and a lot of our vacations have been centered around, let's go to all these coffee shops. But when we moved to Puerto Rico, it became even more so because the culture is very prominent there.
Yeah.
And so, we'd go before work or school in my case, and you would see people there at 6:30 in the morning, a whole group of friends just enjoying coffee together before they go on with their day.
Wow.
And we just thought that that was really incredible. And then we'd see that same group at noontime when we went to get our afternoon coffee.
Yeah.
And so it was like a very cool way to like socialize, before your work day and then in the middle of the day. And then some people, I mean, they would still drink coffee in the evening as well. And so we definitely became a lot heavier caffeine drinkers at that point.
Caffeine
It's
fiends.
one of those things too that they drink smaller sizes because they know that they're gonna have multiple throughout the day.
Right.
Instead of this, give me a 64-ounce whatever big gulp.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I'm gonna use this as an opportunity to take a break, a true break,
Right.
in my day.
Yeah.
Later, and get up from my desk and go to get coffee and recharge both caffeine and that social battery to kind of like shake it off and get away from the office for a second, clear your head. A lot of people in Puerto Rico would walk. Laredo's not a super walkable town.
Yeah.
And that's probably an understatement. It's not walkable at all, I would say.
It is, but it's just like there's the places
There's
are
big
like
gaps.
yeah, there's a big gap.
So for us, it was always like, okay, how do we get Laredo to buy into this idea that we want to serve
Good coffee.
like 12-ounce cups as our biggest cup. Like
Yeah.
some people are like, give me the large, and I'm like, it's right here, and they're like, that's not the haha, and I'm like, no, that's the large.
Yeah.
Maybe you still get those that are like, why are you evil? Like, if I bring my Yeti, can I get more? And I'm like, yeah, if you bring your own cup, I'll charge you 3 coffees and I'll fill it up, whatever you want.
There you go.
You know-
You heard that. If you bring your own Yeti,
Yeah.
they'll charge you more for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is. It's one of those things like, we're not here to tell people how to enjoy coffee.
Right. Yeah.
We're telling you this is how we serve it.
Yeah.
This is why we serve it that way.
Yeah.
And, if you can't or don't want to understand it or be a part of that, we'll work with you. We don't
On your own time. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's not one of those things that, we think we know better than everybody else.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
just it's what worked for us. It's what we like,
And again, I think just like bringing us back to that root of like, wow, this is something that we really appreciated and learned from living in Puerto Rico. It's like to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we forget. And we're in this weird place in Laredo where a lot of us are Mexican and had these Mexican traditions of a slower lifestyle, and we had sobremesa and these things, and then we come to live in the States, and now it's like, rush everywhere, like get the biggest thing of everything, and
Yeah.
instead of just appreciating like, oh, I'm gonna go and sit for 10 minutes while I drink my coffee before I go to work, and then maybe again after I get out or during my lunch break, just to slow down again. And that's really why we did what we did with the smaller cups and all that, because we, at the end of the day, we love meeting people at coffee shops, and we love that lifestyle, and we wanted other people to kind of learn to appreciate that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys lived in Puerto Rico for 5 years, you said?
more or less.
Yeah,
5
about
years.
5
That's
years.
crazy. Like other than school, like what took you guys over there? Like
That was it.
that was it.
That was it. Yeah.
School for optometry.
for optometry.
That's
yeah.
great. And that transferred over here in the States, right? Because I
Exactly.
mean, they're what's it called?
Yeah.
Territory. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's awesome. I mean, it took you guys over there. Like, how did you guys like that?
It was incredible. I mean, we really didn't know what we were getting into when I
all.
decided to go. I knew I wanted to go somewhere warm, so I applied to Florida and
Yeah.
Puerto Rico, and then I got into Puerto Rico, so I was like, we're going to Puerto Rico, or at least I am. I
Yeah.
was like, you can come if you want to.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, we just, maybe did like a couple YouTube searches that were not very good.
Yeah, I pulled up like this crazy documentary about guns by Vice News, and
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's-
Puerto Rico has more guns per capita than like.
Really, do they?
Yeah, it's a wild stat, and
That's
they're all
crazy.
like illegal too, and it's just a crazy. But it's also like you don't see that. It's not like.
You don't
Yeah,
go.
it's
You
like
don't
when
see it
go to
unless you
any
look for
big
it, right?
City, right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
there's always gonna be crime and these like terrible things in big cities or any city, but as long as you're, not looking for it,
yeah.
you should
Yeah,
be good.
if
I was-
Rachel and I were out there trying to like buy drugs on the corner, then maybe we would have found some of these.
Right.
illegal
Yeah, right.
guns, but-
I was gonna say, because the joke every time I came across a Puerto Rican in the army, it's like, oh, are you from the good part of the island or the bad part of the island? Like.
Yeah, no,
And
and
is that a
it's-
thing, or like?
I think so. I mean, I went to school in Bayamon, which is like known for more gang activity.
Oh, really?
And so, but I didn't see any of that,
Yeah.
But then we had friends like that worked as lawyers for the FBI, and they're like, oh yeah, Bayamon's really bad, or
Stay away from here, or, like-
yeah, and
yeah.
and it's like okay, but really, I think it's like you get used to it. I mean, we lived in a really cool area, which was a lot of locals and people that came in from different states and started living on the island, and it was beautiful. We were right by the beach, but then some nights you would hear gunshots all night long
Yeah.
from a couple blocks away.
Well,
and
it's one of those things too. Like, if you're gonna let that stop you from going to Puerto Rico, like, you shouldn't be living in Laredo.
That's
either.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because
that's.
Laredo has the exact same problems.
Right, yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, because my a couple of friends I know want to move down here, or like they want to go come visit, and they're like, oh no, it's so close to a border town, and like the cartel, and it's like it's not like I have never seen it here, like, and I know it's here, but like you just gotta go looking for it,
Right.
and if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, like you'll find it.
And it's like if you live your life based off there could be crime here, there could be guns here, you'll never see the world. And,
Right, yeah.
And that's such a sad thing, because Puerto Rico is beautiful and it's like so small yet has such diversity in terms of its ecosystem, and there's beaches, there's mountains, there's deserts, there's rainforests. Like it's so incredible. It's such a beautiful island, and I feel like
and it's this big.
Yeah.
45 Puerto Ricos geographically fit inside of the state of Texas.
Really,
Yeah.
That's
like
insane.
a puzzle.
wow.
It's stupid. It's so small, and it's like changed the music world for forever.
It has, yeah.
Salsa and
Yeah.
reggaeton, and now trap and everything.
Yeah.
And with coffee and cuisine and culture, it's an
A
incredible.
lot of stuff comes out of that tiny island.
Yeah.
That's
It's-
crazy.
and
nuts.
it's very cool because I guess the proximity to New York, a lot of people go study in New York and then they come back to the island and give back to their people, which is a really cool thing that I think Laredoans should kind of
Yeah.
like take notes from that. Like leave Laredo, yes, learn, study, create, but bring that back and
Right.
our city could change.
Yeah, definitely.
I
Yeah.
do think that's like the biggest issue facing the city in terms of why everybody says the whole there's nothing to do in Laredo, and it's there's money here but people are spending it elsewhere,
Right.
and there's ideas and creative beautiful people in this city and they want to go do stuff in other cities,
Right.
and not that that's wrong,
No.
because you should, but why does it take so much to convince someone to come back to Laredo?
Yeah.
When there is money to be spent here, people do want things to do, and
Yeah.
and part of changing that culture is a joint effort from everything, both public and private sectors, both investment and the idea
Yeah.
and creative people that don't necessarily have the funds to do it, finding, making those connections and getting people the funding and getting people in a position to create these concepts. In the line that we hate receiving is always like, oh, it feels like Austin.
Yeah.
And we get that all the time.
Yeah.
Either here at Radical or at Dosis, and they look at me and they think like, oh, gringo white guy, and it like doubles down, like, oh my gosh, this is not a Laredo thing, and like, why is that the same?
Right. Yeah.
Why can't it be? Oh wow, this feels like Laredo because it's freaking cool.
Yeah.
Like why does it have to be? Oh, this
Another
is
town or
yeah.
another
Or,
city.
oh, this is like a L.A. coffee shop. Like what? What does that even mean?
Yeah, because you guys might not even be emulating that to begin with. So it's
Exactly.
like
Yeah, and
it's
I
our
think
own
that
style or
that's
like your
something we
style.
should be proud of. Like we are from Laredo, we grew up here, and so I feel like that's something we should be proud of. Like Laredoans are making these changes,
Yeah.
and we're so unique because we're Mexican and American, And I feel like we should ride that and just be proud of where we come from and who we are,
Absolutely.
and bring that into our businesses, into our art, and into whatever it is that we do.
Yeah, it should be the other way around. Like when you go to Austin or when you go to San Antonio, oh, it's like Laredo, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly, in a
Yeah.
good way.
No, and I mean, and that sounds like a stretch, but it is what it is. I mean, you have all these like who's better battles between San Antonio and Austin about tacos, and it's like neither of you. Laredo wins.
Yeah.
Like, and same with a lot of the stuff. I feel like we're right there, with other cities, and our citizens of Laredo deserve to get to experience all kinds of stuff, and none of that's going to happen if people aren't,
Open to change.
yeah,
Yeah.
and even if they're not the ones coming up with the ideas or putting forth the effort, showing up to support these people,
Yeah.
Going out to the small businesses when you want a burger, and instead of going to, a chain, maybe you decide, oh, I'm going to go to Glass Kitchen, or I'm going to go to,
Oh, Glass Kitchen sounds good.
Yeah.
And we're guilty of it too. We try hard to go out and support, but we get lazy. We end up at Taco Palenque, which I mean, I know the guys.
That's still local.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's still local.
yeah, but he's just branched
bigger.
out a little bit. Yeah.
Their pockets are a little deeper.
Yeah, a little. Yeah.
But no, I mean, it takes a joint effort from
Yeah.
everyone to keep places like ours open, places like, your Café Dolces, your
Gateway
your
Bagel.
Bolillos, your Gateway Bagel, your
Kai
Kai Todd,
Todd.
Yeah.
your Rooted 956, there are countless others, Lolitas,
Mhm.
Casa
There's-
Carranza, which I'm obsessed with right now.
Who's that or what?
I don't know the owner.
They're off
we
of-
randomly met her the other day, but I don't know.
Yeah,
her
they're
name.
off of Shiloh, kind of by I guess getting towards the Mariscos place. What
Yeah.
is it?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
in like the last shopping center before you hit the Mariscos.
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, but she's from Mexico, and the food is incredible, and it's different than what you would have in any other, Mexican food place in Laredo. It's like they bring in cochinita pibil, which is from the area of Yucatan. They bring in,
Wow.
like different recipes that we're not necessarily used to eating at every taco place that we have here.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really cool. Duck carnitas is another thing.
Duck
Yeah,
carnitas?
duck carnitas.
That's different.
They do
And they make
seafood
their
really
tortillas
well.
in-house.
That's
it's
awesome.
really good.
Yeah.
That is
So
really
that's
awesome.
the thing. If you just like go out and explore and try these little places that you pass by every day, it's like maybe you'll find something amazing there. And,
Yeah.
And I would like to disclose that if I forgot anybody's name, I'm sure I did, but I was put on the spot with the microphone. So,
That's all right. The mic and the camera make everybody nervous, but yeah,
if I
just
forgot you, I love you.
yeah. But I mean, yeah, you guys lived in Puerto Rico for 5 years. You could have decided to, get up and go anywhere else, but you guys decided to come back to Laredo. Like that says a lot. As business owners and as Laredoans, and I think it says a lot because coming back to Laredo and then, like you said, having the idea to open up the coffee shops, other businesses, and promote small business in Laredo, it just kind of pushes people, like, hey, like, look at what we're doing, like.
Well, if anybody needs that last little push, I'll say from our experience, we couldn't have done even a third of what we've been able to accomplish had we tried to do it in a different city.
Yeah.
The family and friend support, the word of mouth support. As much as we just spent the last 30 minutes talking about how Laredo needs to support more, Laredo does support.
Yeah.
They just need to do it for longer.
Right.
That's the key, because Laredo gets really excited about these new concepts that come out, and then they lose interest really fast.
Right.
And go back to their routine of fast food or going to San Antonio every weekend or going to Austin every weekend. And again, I'm not saying don't travel, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when you want to do something on a Wednesday night, if we don't support these places, there's not going to be anything to do on a Wednesday night.
Right. Yeah.
And the pattern's just going to keep repeating itself.
Yeah.
So it's one of those put your money where your mouth is sort of conversations in terms of like, yeah, you support local, well,
Show us, yeah.
Let's see it kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to supporting, the people of Laredo supporting you, I think having a big support system like your employees, I think that's a big part. And how did you go about finding, the right employees? Because mostly they're your friends, right? So like,
Oddly enough, none of them were our friends per se to begin with.
oh really?
This was all just like your standard interview process. Applications came in,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna assume you're saying that as a compliment.
Yeah,
which,
definitely.
Which I take it as such. We
Yeah.
take it as such. I mean, we try really hard to create, an environment of open communication.
Yeah.
And treating everybody with respect, and ideally getting that reciprocated to us. I feel like we've tried really hard to kind of curate a team based on skills as well as
Personality is really important in our kind of industry because we are, we're talking to people every day. And so I think that has a lot to do with it as well. It's not just, what skill set do you have? Because a lot of times you can teach a skill set for the most part.
Right.
But if you're a very, nice, enthusiastic kind of person, then people are going to want to come talk to you every morning before their, their day starts. So.
Yeah. And I was saying that because, Marcos, he shows up to the runs. Chris shows up to the runs. Chris is your coffee roaster. Daniela sometimes shows up to the runs too. But, mainly they're I don't want to say that they're not your friends. They're your friends, obviously.
Sure.
But they're your employees too.
Yeah.
And the relationship that you guys share, it looks like you guys have been friends forever, And I think that's cool because having employees that are trustworthy is, I think that's super big,
No, it's huge. I mean, we've gotten very lucky. Even since the very beginning, we've had employees that really like bought into what we were doing and what we wanted to do, and kind of dove headfirst into a brand new business owned by two people who had never done it before,
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of patience on their end too. So we're super grateful for that. I think a lot of, ideally, we tell them enough, but if we don't and they're listening, we really do appreciate their willingness to just be malleable and learn and take. Even if we tell them to do it one way one day, and then the next day Rochelle and I have a meeting and we decide, man, that was the stupidest thing ever. Why did we do it that way?
Yeah.
And they're able to
Yeah.
Like adapt, yeah.
Yeah, and be adaptable and not just say like, well, that's not how you told me to do it yesterday. It's
Right, yeah.
No, and I think at the end of the day, we've talked to them and we are very open with them about, hey, this is the first business we own, like we're gonna make mistakes and
yeah.
Luckily it's been, again, like he said, it's worked out well, and I feel like we try and make everyone happy and be respectful, and so far it's been good.
It's worked out for you guys, yeah.
I mean, I think that part of it in terms of our openness with them and honesty is what has created this sort of friendship-like feel to it. Because we don't try to pretend to know everything.
Right.
We don't do the whole like, you're gonna do it this way because I said to do it that way, and like
Yeah.
We usually say things because we've tried it another way and failed, and so we're kind of pivoting because it's not one of those things that like you learn on the first go around.
Right. Yeah. And I think it says a lot for your employees to follow your vision, because I think ultimately if they don't follow that vision that you guys have, I feel like they're not on the same page. You know what I mean? And it's tough as a business owner. You know, you have this idea of how you want to run your business and how you want to promote yourself and how you want your business to look like. But if your employees are not on board with you, like it's hard. You know, you have to find the right people, and I think you're doing a good job of having these employees on board. You know, like. And I may have not mentioned everybody because I don't know everybody. I you know, Bobby's here. I've seen him a couple times. Marcos, Daniela, Chris, exceptional people, and others that I have not met and I've missed. But you guys are doing an incredible job, and you guys are doing an awesome job as well.
Thank you.
And I give you kudos for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and super random, but you guys have been together. You guys have been married for how long?
Almost 5 years.
5 years. Super, like that's a power couple. Like I think you guys are an exceptional power couple because I mean you guys are both business owners,
Sure.
and you guys look like you run together really well. But married 5 years. How long have you been together?
Almost 13.
13 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah. No, it's weird. If you would have asked me before we started Dosis if I would ever work this much and this many hours in such complex scenarios side by side with Rochelle for hours and hours, I would have been like, yeah, you're pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But literally from day one, I mean, we don't. Yeah, I'm probably gonna jinx it, but we don't fight about work ever.
That's good.
I mean,
yeah.
It's literally.
Yeah,
like,
I think he was a little scared when I told him I'd help out on the bus, and he thought I wasn't gonna take direction well, and then I surprised him. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things like she's very like lone wolf mentality.
Yeah.
But I know what I'm talking about. Like when it comes to getting through a rush of customers and doing all these things, and literally from day one, I would just tell her to do something, and there was no like, hey, I'm the owner too. It was just like she would do it because she's like, well, you're the one who's done coffee. I don't do coffee. I'm just here to help you.
Right.
And I think her taking that, that position of, I don't need to be in charge because this is not something that's my main, like, strength.
Right.
Allowed me to, on the flip side, allow her to tell me what to do in situations and me be really like, hey, I mean, I'm a little bit more of a, rule follower type anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I do well with direction, but I mean, it's been seamless and pretty effortless in terms of compatibility when it came to the business side of things.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys met in high school or like after high school?
Yeah, so we met in high school, but we didn't start dating until college. But our freshman year of college, so.
So who messaged each other first? Like, how did you guys get initiated? I always like hearing like how how couples started off.
We'll give you the famous story.
Yeah.
But no, basically, I was living in Austin at the time, and she was in Laredo, and every time I'd come back home to visit my parents, which it stopped being visiting my parents after like the second time. It was always visiting Rochelle. And it was like, okay, you want to like go grab some food, or you want to go do this, and I thought those were all dates. I was very convinced, like, we're going on dates.
They're
like,
just, you guys were just friends.
Yeah, like I was like, no, this is a date, and I'm paying for things, and this is like.
Yeah.
And yeah, she didn't think that.
Yeah, we would go to Paulita's for breakfast dates, apparently.
That was like our spot.
But I didn't know it was a date. I thought it was just like, oh, Billy, like that.
Like a casual hangout.
And I did all the best like moves, where you like talk about other girls to make her jealous.
Yeah.
Which apparently just hammered down the fact that it wasn't a date.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about girls that were in Austin, not her. But I was like, no, this is like an opportunity for you to realize that I'm single.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not talking to this girl.
Yeah.
It didn't. It was not. That's not how that worked.
That was not when we started dating.
Yeah.
So how did you guys get the ball rolling then? Like.
Eventually, they just kind of became like.
They become.
We hang out all the time.
We hung out enough times, and it was just like, okay, I guess this is a real thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot more like hanging out, like just her and I, as opposed to, let's go hang out, because we had the same group of friends, so for a while it was just like, yeah, if we're gonna see each other, oh, we're all going to dinner later. I'll see you there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was before everybody was on their phones all the time too.
It's
Yeah,
true.
that's true. Yeah. That's awesome.
Wild.
What's that?
That's so wild.
It's crazy
It
to look
wasn't
back.
that long ago.
Like how little time I spent on Instagram compared to now. It's crazy.
But you're promoting the business now, so that's a big
That's
thing.
his excuse.
Nah, that's
Yeah.
it's again, and I'll self-police. It's a very slippery slope. I get on there to post something for work, and I just spiral.
Start scrolling
And
through.
she just she knows too when it's like fake.
Yeah.
Like she's like, why are you posted already? Like get off that thing. And then with the Run Club too, because I'm like, oh, I have a new excuse. Like I'm doing Run Club posts or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'll try to be better.
There you go. It's always about being better, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Get better
And
every day.
there you go. And you mentioned the Run Club. That's a good like transition into the next segment. Laredo had a couple of run clubs back in the day, and I know you and I talked about it a little bit. I enjoy what you're doing with this run club, and if you want to just elaborate on that and tell the people about the run club.
So the Run Club is called Loco y Lento. It's
What does loco y lento mean? Because I didn't know what it meant. I know what it means now, but
crazy and slow.
there you go.
I started the Run Club, and it's actually my second attempt at a run club. We started one through Dosis, which was actually pretty successful. It just kind of fizzled.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like a little bit singular in terms of its ability to grow because it was based solely on our coffee shop.
Yeah.
And Loco y Lento was a chance. Started working with my buddy Daniel, who kind of co-founded Loco y Lento with me.
Shout out to Daniel.
Yeah.
Good guy.
But it all kind of happened because he started running with me. And I was like, man, I follow these awesome run clubs out of San Antonio and Austin. And they get like 15 to 20 people, and they hang out afterwards, and they go to brunch together, or they like have some beers, or they barbecue. It's like it's a social experience as opposed to just come get your butt kicked,
Right? Yeah.
By yourself.
Right.
And it's been super cool to see the growth and people like yourself you pretty much come to every single one, and we've met David like that, and our friend Maret shows up, and Chris obviously like you mentioned. Marcos freaking bought running gear the other day.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
I'm like, hey, this guy's like real now.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
wow.
getting serious, yeah.
And
The
it's-
commitment is there.
and it's been really cool to see and be a part of, and have this new outlet for meeting people and socializing that's different than your standard, like, okay, let's
Go to the bar or
bars
whatever.
Yeah. It's a different dynamic, and it's it's something that, again, I think Laredo needs more of in terms
Definitely,
of
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy running. My wife hates it, but I mean, she likes walking, and that's why you've seen us. You've seen my wife there with the kids too. But for anybody that's looking for a run club, check out Loco y Lento on Instagram. No Facebook page, right?
No.
Yeah. So
it's mirrored onto mine though. If you see.
Yeah. And the Loco y Lento, you've been doing Tuesdays now more frequently,
Yeah,
right?
so we started adding Tuesdays as the weather got nicer. So there is a run tonight, which is, Tuesday. This won't be posted today.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Tuesdays at 6 p.m., Thursdays at 6:15 a.m., and Sundays at 8:15 a.m.
And those days are stretched out perfectly because it's not like one right after the other or
Right.
whatever, and the times too.
And it's close enough, and there's enough opportunities where, like, if you can only go once a week, cool, you can only go once a week, but you're still getting that opportunity to go. And again, meet some new people, get out, sweat a little bit. Although it's been chilly, so not as much sweating.
Yeah, we sweat the other day on
That's
Sunday.
true, that's true.
I was sweating a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. Sunday was a good little run.
Yeah, it was. Oh man, my legs were so tired. I had to like foam roll and I had to stretch and like
I've become best friends with my foam roller.
It's so good.
I'm
It's
gonna
so
start
good.
doing that as like a welcoming package for Loco.
There you
It's
go,
like
a foam roller.
Here's your foam roller,
And you gotta put the Loco y Lento on it.
yeah,
That'd be awesome.
little logo,
That'd be cool.
custom foam rollers.
That'd be awesome.
Put that on the Christmas list.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you guys for being on the show. I'm gonna kind of transition this out a little bit. I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you guys got stuff to do and stuff. But I really appreciate you having me here at Café Radical. Enjoyed having you guys on the show, and I think if the show continues in the direction that it's going, because I got a lot of positive feedback on the first episode, and I think this episode is going to get a lot of even more positive feedback. That didn't really make sense, but even more positive feedback, right?
Sure.
If it keeps going in the direction that I think it's going, we'll have a part two. And
Oh no, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us, and you're always welcome here. I do think it's cool that like you kind of do the interviews like at the different businesses. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Well,
Cool touch.
to be honest, I had no intention of doing that. Like, I had the intention of doing it in my office at home, but then again, my wife was like, "Well, what if you do it at the businesses and kind of like showcase like where they're located and kind of like what they're doing, or like the background or the atmosphere of where they're at."
Yeah, for sure.
I was like, I mean, if they're comfortable with it, that's an option. But I gotta say thank you to you, because when I first joined Loco y Lento in those first few runs, I thought to myself, I was like, man, this guy's so cool. Like, I gotta know more about him. But like, and I'm not trying to like toot your horn or whatever, but like, I was like, man, I gotta know more about him and the business that you guys run. And like, what better way to do that than to like sit down and have a podcast and like just talk about your business,
No, absolutely.
but also promoting small business here in Laredo, and like have people know like, hey, this business exists. Like, come and support, come show love, like help these people thrive.
No, and we really appreciate that. I don't think people. I mean, maybe you do because you're doing it, but I think a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to get the word out.
Or even just to like email, message us. Like, we're an open book, and we've had people tell us, "Hey, I want to open a coffee shop," and we'll open our doors up to you and show you how to do that if you want to do that.
That's awesome.
Because again, this is about just helping the community and growing our city that we love so much. And so yeah, if you ever want to message us, whoever it is, we're gonna tell you our side of it if you want to hear it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
we were definitely handed a ton of pieces of advice from all sorts of people in the coffee industry. Shout out Prophet Jason from San Antonio Gold,
there you go.
who opened his doors to us and let us pick his brain from everything about suppliers and in between, and pricing and how you should do things and scheduling and all sorts of stuff, and just with complete disregard for, man, what if these two opened down the street, And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. It's about, sharing your struggles and your successes, and that's what's going to make Laredo's small business scene as a whole move forward.
Yeah.
Inside of coffee or out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it gives you guys it connects the people of Laredo with you, or it connects the people of Laredo, like it connects you guys to the people of Laredo and gives them a closer connection, I think. And that was the whole reason behind this podcast, to get the people of Laredo to know you guys, to know the small business owners and connect on that personal level, and not just be like, oh, like, well, who's the owner? Like, oh, that that guy or that girl or like whatever, and it's like, yeah, I enjoy when business owners come forth and like, hey, like, thanks for coming to my business, or like, thanks for supporting us, and it just says a lot, and I think that's super important. I mentioned that in the last episode, and I'm gonna keep harping on it, and it may sound like annoying, but it's super important to me. It creates that connection with you guys.
No, for sure.
Yeah. And where can people find you on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that?
Sure. So if you're looking for Dosis Coffee, on Instagram and Facebook will be Dosis, DOSIS, Coffee, the full word, TX, is our handle on both of those. You can reach out via email if you have any questions, dosiscoffeetx@gmail.com. Our phone number is listed on Google too, as well as our address, but I'll tell it anyway. It's 7220 Bob Bullock Loop, right in front of the La Quinta, right next to El Capataz.
Nice.
And then our downtown spot, our new baby, Café Radical, is located at 1020 Main Avenue, right outside the heart of downtown, right before you hit the bridge on Washington Street going to LC. That one is Café Radical TX on all the social media platforms. as well as our email, caferadicaltx@gmail.com. We're always looking to, again, answer any questions or just chat. So reach out.
Yeah, definitely. Are there before we close out? Are there any specials that you guys have, or like any promotions for coffee?
Yeah, I
or-
mean, right now we just started the student combo for any college students in town. So either LC or TAMU, and it's a $4 drip coffee and a house-made pastry, and that's every single day.
We're also going to be doing a small business Saturday next Saturday after Black Friday.
The
So
26th.
try and reserve your shopping for small business Saturday at Dosis next to El Capatas.
And that's on the not this Saturday, right?
Saturday the 26th.
It's going to be the
26th.
26th, yes.
The week of Thanksgiving, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what is that like?
So
you
we're
take.
gonna have a bunch of different vendors. A lot of our usual suspects. So you have like
La Gorra
La Gorra
Azul,
Azul.
Clay and Ivy. We have Eco.
Is it like a vendor's
Chico.
market?
Thrift
Like,
Mikan. Yeah,
Thrift
we have some
Mikan.
shoe vendors that are gonna be out there selling sneakers again. We have Venado Azul, who does cactus and pottery. Casa
think-
Simplicity, which is another like candles and a bunch of really cool stuff.
I think we're also going to have a couple new vendors that have been reaching out to us as well, but all of them are local. A lot of them are artisan products, and so again, we just always try and support local as much as we can. So it'll be a good place for everyone to come out and start their Christmas shopping.
yeah, definitely. And like that had the Venado Azul is you said the cactus.
Yeah.
Cacti. And
That's
is
Cactus Chris, the same Chris.
Oh, okay, yeah,
who
yeah,
roasts
yeah.
Star Coffee, yeah.
yeah. Is there a fee for that, or like?
If you'd like to vend, it's a $25 setup.
Okay.
And then you sell what you sell.
And is there a percentage that you guys take,
No,
or
it's
no?
the flat $25, and whatever you make is what you make. You just
That's
have
awesome.
have to bring your own stuff.
Awesome.
So if you want to be outside, bring your own tent, table, chairs, the whole nine. And yeah, it's a all-day event, so 9 to 2. Setup starts at 8 a.m. And we're still looking for vendors, and we're always looking for vendors. So if you message us on Instagram, we'll try and get back to you and get you set up to sell. And you pay the day of, so no need to pay up front.
And they message you on the Dosis
On the Dosis
Instagram page.
Instagram, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for coming on the show again. I really enjoyed your time, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think this is going to be a great episode that people are going to listen to, and yeah. Thanks for coming on the show, and I can't say thank you enough. Like
Absolutely, it's tons of fun.
yeah. Thank you guys, and thank you for watching. I'm your host Jeffrey Ramos again. And you were watching and listening to Billy Hrncir and Rochelle Mota from Dosis Coffee and Café Radical. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for watching and listening.
Thanks.